Hello everyone, this short video is going to talk about the basics of business style, and these are just some conventions that you are going to apply throughout the semester to every document that you produce. We're going to talk specifically about plain language, clarity and conciseness, positive tone, formatting a document for reading, inclusive language, and specific message conventions in terms of how you design the message. So some things to remember as we get started. Number one, business documents exist to get things done. Nobody in the business world or the professional world is going to assign you an essay to write just for the sake of having you write an essay. If you are told to write something or assigned a writing project by a supervisor or client, it's because they need something done with that writing. So everything that you put into writing has to be put in with the eye of purpose. What is my purpose for writing, and what is the best way to achieve that purpose through writing? Number two, no one owes you a reading. Nobody owes you to sit down and study your document and try to figure out what it is you meant to say. In school, you're asked to write essays, and teachers and professors are contractually obligated to read and evaluate your work, even if it's terrible. In the business world, if you send a message that is poorly written, poorly conceived, sloppy, or full of mistakes, it'll simply be deleted or thrown away. No one has to read the thing that you wrote. Number three, it's always about the reader and the audience. Every time you send a document or a message or a deliverable, you are asking someone to take their time and look at it. Therefore, that document needs to be designed with the reader in mind, with the audience focus. Now, to do this, we're going to use a couple of different strategies, and the first strategy is plain language. You might think that business writing is very, very formal and stuffy, in pursuant to, as per request by, all of those other kind of like old-fashioned phrases. And while there are certain careers and disciplines such as the law where those more antiquated phrases are still used, the vast majority of contemporary business writing uses what's called plain language. In fact, in 2010, the federal government passed a mandate that for the government and all government documents had to be written in plain language. And that means it's language that's easily understood. This is language that is conversational in tone, that's written specifically for an audience in mind, that's organized effectively for easy reading, and that is designed for reading, so that everything about the message is for the audience. It's simple, it's clear, it's to the point, it doesn't use overblown vocabulary, it doesn't use overly complex phrases when a simple phrase will do. And it's concise. Conciseness and clarity are the hallmarks of business writing, and it's one of the things that you're really going to need to work on this semester. It is not enough to be grammatically correct. Instead, your writing needs to be clear. You should select common, easily understood words. This is not an academic essay. You should not be using plethora or myriad or utilize. Make your language as simple as possible while still putting across your point professionally. Avoid jargon or slang because those can be difficult to understand if you're not that specific audience. Make sure that you revise any wordy expressions to get rid of unnecessary verbiage. Eliminate redundancy so that you don't repeat yourself within a sentence or within a document. And then next, we're going to talk about positive tone. So you will have to send negative messages. You'll have to deliver bad news. You'll have to reject claims. And you'll have to reject requests. But for the vast majority of business documents and business writing, you want to try to make your tone as positive as possible. And what that means is that you're going to use positive language, and you're always going to try to present the best possible outcome instead of delivering it in bad news. So for example, you would not necessarily want to say your car will not be ready Friday. That's emphasizing the negative, what will not happen. Instead, you could simply switch this to your car can be picked up on Saturday. Instead of emphasizing the negative, you emphasize what can be done, what is possible, and what the customer, client, or supervisor could look forward to. So in general, you want to avoid negative phrasing. You also want to make sure that you format your texts for reading. Make sure that you understand your audience constraints. Will this document be read on paper, on a page? Will it be read on a screen? Those make differences in what you select in terms of your design. But also think about the fact that your audience, even if they are well-meaning, they're busy, they're distracted, and they have a lot on their plates. Chances are, even if they're interested in sitting down to read your email, something else will ping on their computer, someone will tap them on the shoulder, and they'll have to do something else kind of in the middle of reading your document. So you always want to format your document for ease of reading. It should be skimmable, it should be easily accessible. And by accessible, we mean your audience can access the information they need easily. So you want to focus on short paragraphs, including lists. Anytime you have long lists of items, put them in bulleted points. You want to focus on parallel construction. The more that you can make the wording, the sentence structure, the paragraphing, and even the overall format of your document parallel in nature, the more clear it will be to your reader. We also need to think about inclusive language. We are in the 21st century in 2022 when I'm taping this particular video. And we're to a point now where discriminatory language and language that's not inclusive is no longer professional. So we want to avoid biased language, and that means avoiding any terms that isolate sex, gender, age, ethnicity, race, religion, or any kind of personal identifier that is unnecessary to the meaning of the conversation. So instead of policeman, you could just say police or police officer. You don't want to say that nurses are all women or insist that. And you want to make sure that overall, your language is as inclusive as possible. Finally, we're going to discuss some document conventions. Business documents in general are single-spaced. They should not be double-spaced like an essay. You do not indent paragraphs, but you should include one line break between paragraphs because business documents use white space to show breaks. You want to make sure that you're using headings and subheadings to guide readers in longer documents, and make sure that the most important information is always towards the top of the page or to the left of the page. The most important heading is going to be the largest, boldest heading. It'll be the closest to the top of the page. Less important headings and subheading levels will be farther down on the page, farther down on the list, or they'll be indented to the right. Use white space effectively. White space makes documents more easy to read. So if you think about your own feelings when you approach a large, dense page of text, think about your reader's experience. Anytime you can break up paragraphs into shorter snippets, anytime you can use font manipulations to help guide your reader's eyes, you're making a more readable and approachable text. And most of all, you want to make sure that your page design is consistent. Whatever you do in one place, you need to do throughout your entire document. So making sure that your spacing is consistent, your use of bullets is consistent. One thing you want to pay attention to is you don't want to overdo it on page design. Keep things simple because too many bullet points, too many indentations, and too much space can be just as noisy as a large block of text. So those are some basics of business style. You should make sure that you read your textbook carefully for more specific information about this topic and reach out to your professor if you have any questions.